So you finally made it. As you know, the US elections are just a few months away, and one particular candidate is very popular. If he were to win in November, it would be a very big problem for our rogue Middle Eastern state known as Iran. And this is why we have hired you, Special Agent, to solve our little problem. You are the best of the best, and the only man to carry out an international spy assassination attempt. Are you ready?
Okay, where you wanna go?
Go to a nearby roof. He's only 150 meters away.
Okay. I really wish I had like a variable zoom scope so I could see him better.
Don't worry about that. A cheap bargain bin AR with Chinese red dot is the best thing for the job. After all, it's just as good as a knight's armament. Take the shot. Take the shot.
Oh, I missed. Oh, I missed again. Oh, I missed again. Oh, I missed.
Secret Agent, are you there? No. We lost him. Quick, send in vegan guy with 3% muscle mass and Bubba SKS with tape scope.
Do you have intel that the assassination attempts on President Trump were directly from Iran?
Through proxies, yes. Through their intel, yes.
So I've been, as many of you have, thinking about life. My head is full of thoughts all the time. And something that I've been pondering is that it feels as if every generation before us had life on easy mode, whether that was jobs, housing. It's like, yeah, why don't you just go to that job and shake their hand and they'll hire you? And it's like, no, that's not how it works anymore. You know, you can be qualified for a job and still not get it. You know, the housing market is severely due for a crash, I think. I mean, I'm not an expert. They've been saying it's going to crash forever and it still hasn't fallen. But all this to say that it feels like all you had to do in those last generations, whether it be Gen X or boomers, you just had to show up and do the bare minimum and you would have gotten everything your heart desired and then some. And there were people that took advantage of that and there's people that didn't take advantage of it and they just kind of sat back and consumed. I just also watched the Sam Hyde video, so I'm kind of high off of that energy. But, you know, I thought about how does that apply to guns? Because it feels like AKs, SKSs, Mosins, the Milsurp market was so alive 20 years ago. You could go in and get M1 carbine, like, oh, you know, back in my day, we had at my gun store, we had a barrel full of M1 carbines, $50 a piece, you know, buy one, get one, and a whole case of ammo, 1,000 rounds of, you know, 30 cal. And it's like, you know, I went to a gun store more recently and they were selling M1 carbines for like $3,500 and the serial numbers were in the millions. Was this the carbine that Donnie Wahlberg's character was sitting in the tree like shooting Germans with? Like this thing better have been carried by Patton himself. Like why are we charging, you know, $3,500 for an M1? And I sent it to Austin even, Vintage Warfare, and I was like, hey, what's up with this? And other guys that knew what they were talking about and they're like, that is insane. And you know, these guys are older, they're boomers, but they consumed all that Milsurp and left us with nothing. So now you, the enthusiast, have to go buy a $600 Mosin, and you're probably gonna throw anime stickers on it because you're a degenerate. Seek Jesus is my advice. Seek Christ. But you know, people that want to get into this stuff, it's hard for us, our generation. I'm 27 years old. It's hard to get into Milsurp. You know, I got an M1 Garand because the CMP still sells those. Prices are still relatively low, but once the CMP sells out of those and the boomers get a hold of it, it's over for the M1. There's gonna be $3,000 for a rack grade, you know, immediately. You know, what are the bright sides to our society now? And I think there is actually many as far as gun culture goes. You know, the citizens take themselves much more seriously. Suppressors are much more common use. Short-barreled rifles and tactical rifles are everywhere now, it feels. The demand has risen so much that you can go buy a $100 AR. It may not be the best thing in the world, but you have an AR and it's compared to the prices they were for ARs 20 years ago, it's way better. And there's another sleeper market that is our equivalent of the Milsurp, and that would be the police trade-in market. There are a ton of guns out there, high quality firearms, Colt AR-15s, Glocks, shotguns, a few of which I'm gonna show here in a little bit. It's almost better than Milsurp. I mean, what's Milsurp these days? A couple old bolt guns, the barrels are shot out, you're getting 6 ammo away. But, you know, there's Colt AR-15s you can buy that a cop carried and they're in good condition. You might have to change bolt carrier group or whatever the case, but, you know, we'll talk about all that in a second. But needless to say that there's a whole market that people are kind of sleeping on, and that's the police trade-in. And I've collected a few of these guns, and we're going to talk about it here today. So let's do it. Now, before we talk about the guns, we have to talk about the sponsor for the channel and for this video, HammyPrints.
I don't know what to say.
Who are you gonna shill for first?
Probably Hammy 3D prints, probably. They mostly just make like 2,300 different products. If you want to mount stuff to like pegboard or wall or gallows tick or secure or grid wall, or you're safe with magnets. Kill flash or a light cover?
What that is?
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, but here's the thing. What if I had a kill flash for my light?
Funny story, I got asked enough, I actually did make it begrudgingly.
Here's an example of a, cop SERP, if you will, police trade-in that I got a few years back. And that is the M16A1 upper. So I guess this video is just gonna kind of turn into like a collector, like my gun collection 2025. Purchased this upper a few years back. If you've been on the channel for a little bit, you kind of know the lore on it, but for those that are new. So this upper, without the heat shield and the fake M203, it was just the, normal A1 upper. This upper was given to a local gun store because back in the Obama years, I guess, ammo prices were really bad. So the local police department had a bunch of M16A1s that they had got from the National Guard. So they had these auto M16s, but they needed ammunition, so they went to the local gun store. They traded those uppers in exchange for ammunition. So this gun store had a bunch of these uppers. This was probably the last one in the last 10, 13 years that, was just sitting there. But he had a bunch of these original Colt uppers, and that is an example of something you can still get out there. You can still get those parts kits as Milsurp, but it's very expensive. If you're lucky and you're able to score an upper like this, the way I was, that's still an option. That was a few years back, so I don't know what it's looking like now. If you're looking for something a little more recent, let's jump on to the next gun. So the advice that people often give for somebody who's purchasing the AR-15 for the first time, it's advice I've heard, it's advice you've heard. You've probably given this advice to somebody, and that is BCM upper, arrow lower. Arrow precision's been a little bit sketchy in recent years, or I should say in recent months, kind of a newer thing. Not shipping orders, poor QC. I know a guy's in my Discord. He didn't get, it was like months before they shipped out, I think he ordered like an upper from him. That's always been sound advice, but the principles of it remain the same. High quality upper, BCM has been a favorite for many years on an inexpensive lower. That advice is solid if you're not broke. There was a time in my life, and there's probably a time in some of the viewers' life, you may not be able to go drop 7 Benjamins on an upper. It can get kind of expensive, and that's not even counting accessories and stuff like that. So it's solid advice, sure, but what do you do if you're more on a budget? You're more budget oriented. Well, the smart thing is save up your money, be responsible, but that might be too hard for some people. So what's another alternative? Well, something like this Colt AR-15 can be had on the Cop SERP. I call it Cop SERP, police trade-in market. So I snagged this for about 7 Benjamins, and it came in the configuration very similar to this. I added the Troy rail foregrip, but it came with the original clamshell handguards, iron sights, waffle stock. Everything was good to go right out of the box, basically. I would prefer to have a rifle like this over something like a Bear Creek Arsenal within that $400 to $700 price range. Well, 7's okay, but those lower like $400 ARs, there's probably people that say, hey, I bought my Freedom PSA. It was only this much money. That's great and all. But if I wanted to defend my life, I want to take things a little more serious, I would rather go and get a police trade-in than bet on poor QC, Anderson, rest in peace. A company like that, I'd rather go with, an actual trusted Colt that rode around in a patrol vehicle for a while and was cared for by an officer. These parts can also be worn sometimes. That's something you gotta look out for. Test the bolt carrier group. If you don't know how to do that, maybe I'll throw a little video up here. Little changes like adding a handguard to it, adding different furniture if you want, or upgrading that bolt carrier group goes a long way. This is the new GoPro setup because that helmet was not cutting it. Reloads here. Is he doing a 1-on-1? Yeah, not even very well, to be honest with you. Top left quadrant. A little shaky. Could be better. Hey, welcome to my range. Hope you're enjoying the show. Hope you guys are enjoying a little behind the scenes, even though this is not behind the scenes, this is just the scenes. We're exposing our image properly now. Gonna have to squat to get into this position here. I still believe in the 1-on-1. Why? Because it makes me feel like I'm doing something more than I am. It makes me feel like I'm busy, you know what I mean? Busy hands. It's not really busy hands. We could do a busy hands real quick. Let's do it. Oh gosh, stuck in the... This holster is not optimized for this at all. terrible. Just terrible. What was that, 15 seconds? We gotta show the Glock 17 off here a little bit too. And as far as the Colt rifles actually go, so that is at a time when Colt is making all their stuff in-house, and these uppers and these parts are coming off the same assembly line for the M4 as the 6920. So the upper on this is marked M4 right here, indicating that it is a, normal M4 upper. So you basically had, assembly lines of lower, or I should say uppers moving down. It's like military. Oh, this one's going LE 6920. So they're being built in the same factory. There's gonna be differences. The trigger pins are a little bit bigger on these. The pockets are not cut the same way as they would be on an M4 because they were trying to prevent like full conversions and things like that. Barrel being a 16-inch as opposed to a 14.5. But as Colt has progressed, there are some later variants. They got ATF approval in the mid-2000s that they could use normal trigger pins and do some things that were a little more mil spec. So bolt carrier in this one is actually kind of goofy as well because it has a kind of, the bottom of it's just completely cut, but it's still a very serviceable rifle, and many of those things can be changed. So I wouldn't really sweat those kind of details. I just like to actually have a gun like this because the fit and finish of it, you can really feel it. The slickness, it's hard to describe. The way that the plastic feels in the grip, the way that the stock and the buffer tube feel, everything just, I'm trying to say feel a million times, but everything feels more solid than on a PSA Freedom rifle. The rifle just locks up a little bit nicer. I know that this gun served this country in some capacity. We can't get M4s today, but we can get something that's basically an M4. So this is like, our version of the M1 Garand that people used to get. And for those rifles to be available still, I think is really cool. Yeah, that's all I think. Another video that I did a while back that really did not perform very well was the Remington 870 video. I think shotgun content on YouTube is kind of hit or miss. I like the shotgun. I enjoyed making the video. I thought it was a fun time. That chicken's gonna squawk, just wait for it. So we got the Remington 870 here. It kind of is like mall ninja'd out right now. I've been testing out this rail here to put an optic on it because the top isn't cut for an optic, but it's bringing a little bit of mall ninja energy. I wanted to throw the Trijicon up there because I wanted it to be kind of like Battlefield 3-esque, but this Remington 870 I snagged for about 3.5 Benihanas. I can't say the price, so I gotta say Benjamins, Benihanas, things like that. And in this configuration, it came with the choke stock, it came with the side saddle, not this one, I added this after. Didn't come with the optic, obviously, but it did come with the Surefire. I don't even know the nomenclature on this. It's the same thing basically as the MP5 handguard, but for a shotgun. So for all of that, I thought that's a pretty good deal. That's a pretty good steal for 3.5. All right, so we got the old 870 here. We will load her up. Nothing too crazy. I just wanted here we go, water bottle. He shall be sacrificed. If you're not shooting trash with your shotgun, what are you doing? Here's another old water bottle. Put that right here. Oh yeah, we're really getting after it now. See here. The bottle was no more. It's always fun to run a shotgun, isn't it? When you rack it, you'll scare off everybody. Let's see if my light still works. Nope, went dead. My light often does that. For whatever reason, I even sent this thing to Surefire. Focus for me, please. I even sent this thing to Surefire, and they're like, yeah, we found nothing wrong with it. And clearly, you shoot this thing a couple times and the light just stops working. And then you shoot it a couple more times and it starts working again. So, huge bummer. Shotguns are still very, very effective weapons. There's plenty of people that can talk to it much better than I can. I'm just a internet LARPer. But the whole philosophy for this particular firearm was I wanted a 90s shotgun, kind of a SWAT vibe. And where I looked was the police trade-in market. So I actually bought one like from Sportsman's Warehouse or something, but it was like $5 or so. So a little more expensive than I wanted to pay, and it wasn't really in the configuration I wanted. It's kind of settling, so I kind of canceled my order and I was like, hey, sorry, but I don't want that gun anymore. And then I ended up finding this on Gunbroker. And it was pretty much exactly what I wanted. It had a fixed stock. That was kind of a requirement of mine. It had the side saddle, and then it had a Surefire light, which is kind of a bonus. I wasn't really looking for that, but finding that was huge. So the way the shotgun's set up, I might get a little bit of a different stock. Maybe that one that you can get shells, it like stores shells. That'd be kind of cool. But you know, as far as a shotgun goes, I'm not like a huge shotgun dude. Doesn't get me going, doesn't excite me. You know, clone ARs, video game clones, that kind of stuff gets me pumped up a little bit more as opposed to handguns or shotguns. But I wanted to have a shotgun in the collection. You know, the only other one that I would... What'd I tell you? That chicken's gonna squawk, just wait for it. The only other shotgun I would want to really add at this time would be, you know, a Benelli M4, kind of or Super 90, that'd be kind of cool. That's also a very 90s-esque shotgun, but you know, this shotgun was made in 1993 as per the barrel codes. This is when Remington was making guns, high quality weapons. You know, this being a police Magnum, the parts on it are a little bit better than on like a Remington Express, some of those newer ones. And you know, those few years back, there was some controversy with Remington where somebody bought them out, I forget who did, and the quality dipped. You know, trigger pins I heard were breaking, and there was just a lot of issues with that line. I'm not sure if they fixed it, but it's not the same Remington. Even if they did fix it, you know, at least with an old gun, you know, from the 90s like this, you know you're getting that old school Remington. And that's something I really appreciate. There's plenty of these to be had, and it's certainly a way that you can defend yourself. Depending on where you live, understand the relationship that your ammunition is going to have with the sheetrock walls in your home. For neighbors, apartment living, those are all considerations with a shotgun. But you know, being out here in the country, I'm not too concerned about that. Even if I had to blast through several walls in my home, the ammunition's not gonna travel far enough to the neighbor. So, you know, it's not something I'm worried about. So this gun's kind of a honorable mention because this is not a police trade-in, but it is very similar to a lot of police trade-ins and a little bit actually outdated compared to what police trade-ins are on the market. But that is a used Glock 17 Gen 1. I just like show it off because it's a Gen 1. It's really not that special. I mean, after I got this gun, it's like, you know, you compare it to a Gen 5 and there's differences, but it's really the same gun. It's like when you go get the old iPhone and it's like, yeah, it's different, but it's all the same, if that makes any sense. There's plenty of police trade-in Glocks still on the market. There's many Gen 3s, often in 40 Smith & Wesson, which you could probably spend a whole nother video talking about whether 40 Smith & Wesson is a viable option in the current year, whatever. The way I see it, this is how I think of it, all right? Little bullets suck. Big bullets are much better. Debating on which little bullets are worse than other little bullets, it's kind of wasted energy. I personally like to have as many little bullets as possible. And you know, 17 round 9mm magazine in a gun like this, that suits my my needs just fine. So, you know, Glock 17, old fashioned is fine, but you know, there's plenty of 40 Smith & Wesson guns on the market and they're very inexpensive because nobody wants 40. 40's a dead caliber. So it's not like video games where they patch it, you know, so a 40 Smith & Wesson that knocked somebody down in 1995 is gonna knock somebody down in 2025 just the same. No more guns are probably gonna be produced in that caliber, but there's still so much 40 out there and there's so many guns that are under 3 Benjamins that, hey, why not grab a little shower gun kind of thing? And the police, you know, traded market is really good for that. They're all over the place, as well as plenty of Gen 5 even 19s. Just gotta kind of know where to go and kind of shop around, you know? He's gonna take you back to the past, play some games that are bad. He'd rather have a buffalo. Take a diarrhea dump in his ear. He'd rather eat. Oh no, baby, what is you doing? He's the angriest gamer you've ever heard. He's the angry Nintendo. Got some upgrades coming to this Glock here soon. Kind of leave it at that. I'm excited about it. We'll do a whole video for this little 17. Nothing too special because oh, I'm out of ammo. Sad. Nothing too crazy because I mean, how many Glock videos exist out there? Like a gazillion. However, we'll do something with it I don't think I've seen anybody do before. It's kind of unique, kind of fun. So there she is, Glock 17. I would rather have this handgun than many other handguns on the market. This being even an older, you know, 1987 Glock. So I would much rather have this gun than a SIG P320. You can always add an optic to this thing if you really want to, you know, get the cut here. I might be putting something a little bit back here. I'm not going to cut it. We're not going to do like a 110 SAS sort of deal on it, but I'm thinking about giving this a little bit of a reskin. I think that would kind of make for a fun video. But the point being is there are plenty of firearms that are used, and that may even be police trade-in or just normal used firearms that you can get a lot of value out of. I would still rather carry a used gun than a lot of cheap guns that are out there, because these guns have been trusted by law enforcement professionals, you know, for a while. Some of them aren't as professional, but you get what I mean. I would wager that many of these cops probably don't even shoot their guns that much. They probably just load them, throw them in the back of their car rather. At the end of the day, unload it, put it back in the armory, and that's the life cycle of many of these guns. I wouldn't assume that for the majority of them, but you kind of, somewhere in between that spectrum is what you're gonna get. So I appreciate you guys watching this video, you know, taking time to come look at my used gun collection. I love used stuff, used optics, used firearms. It's a way to save money, and often people don't use their stuff very much, so you're getting usually a pretty good deal. You know, imagine if it was a whole used car market, but people didn't actually drive their cars. They just went online and talked about how much they drive their cars, or which car, hey, my engine, the V6 is better than the V8 or whatever the case. And it's like, yeah, but you don't even drive either of those. You just walk everywhere. You know, that's kind of how the gun community is. So you'll see optics for $200-300 off. And it's like, oh, you know, it was just kind of a safe queen. I didn't really like use it that much. And then you get the thing and it's like pristine condition, and it'll be something like an ACOG, which is already gonna have like infinite life. But I'm ranting at this point. I appreciate you guys watching the video and sticking around. I hope you got something out of it, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your day. Please tell me I was recording.